At first glance, Dinner Date seems like a perfectly straightforward dating show, but scratch beneath the surface and you will find one of the most truly demented pieces of media ever committed to British television. Today, we're going to break down this fascinating cultural car crash and try to explain why I, and many others, simply cannot stop watching it. I'm Benedict Townsend, this is my channel, and this
is Dinner Date, the show where people hope to find true love through their love of good food.
The premise of Dinner Date is repeated at the start of every episode, and it's incredibly simple. A single person is offered 5 menus that were written by 5 other single people. They then choose their favourite 3 menus of the 5, then they go to those people's homes, have those menus cooked for them by those 3 people, and then at the end they choose their favourite person to go on a real date in a real restaurant. And already I'm sure you've got a nagging feeling in the back of your brain saying, "Hey Benedict, that doesn't sound like it makes any sense at all." And no, it doesn't, you're right. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work as a dating show. In fact, the format has created the anomaly of a dating show where no one ever ends up dating. But more on that later. To truly understand the twisted genius that is Dinner Date, we need to go step by step through a typical episode. The single person goes to a restaurant, for some reason, to look at 5 menus that have been prepared for them by 5 single strangers. Now, I don't want to harp on about this, but why exactly they need to go to a restaurant to do this is not clear to me. Obviously, it's on theme, but why the producers feel the need to pay to empty a fully working restaurant so that one person can sit in it and look at 5 menus is totally beyond me. Like, they could just do it in a studio and it would be easier and cheaper, but each to their own. The single person works their way through the menus, making comments about the food and trying to gauge whether they would get along with the person who wrote the menu. The menus are also stuffed with puns for some reason, which I'm 300% sure have been inserted by the producers after the fact, because, well, I don't want to be mean to the people who go on Dinner Date, but they do not strike me as a bunch of amateur Dr. Zeus's.
I won't mind meeting someone who is into the gym, but it's not really a necessity. But does that work?
As the menu is analysed, we're shown short VTs of each of the 5 people. The theming of these VTs is always exactly the same. The producers seem to find a single quality this person has, or just invents a quality for the person, and then goes absolutely nuts on it. For example, if the person mentioned in passing that one time they did a card trick, the entire VT will be them dressed as a magician, walking around talking about how much they love magic.
I think I'm really good at stalking. I will sit down and stalk someone for hours. Being a spy would be my ideal job.
Our protagonist will then continue through the menus, often struggling to read basic words. And seriously, I'm not being a snob here. Like, fair enough if they look at caviar on a menu and they're like, what's this? But quite often, I would say worryingly often, people are reading through these menus and they're like, potato? Potato. What's this? Never had that before. Potato? Cod? What is that, like a meat? Cod?
I don't actually know what lemon sole is. Is that fish?
Caprese? Who knows?
Sounds good to me. I'm not quite sure what halloumi is.
But I digress. Eventually they choose 3 people and decide they're the ones they want to go on dates with. And I know what you're thinking, well, what happens to the other 2 people? You know, the 2 people that wrote a whole menu and who they went to film, did a whole VT with. Well, those people just get tossed aside. Yeah. They just film 2 extra people just so they can be immediately tossed aside and never show up in the show again. Seems like an incredible waste of resources, but that's just how Dinner Date does it, and I can't say I don't like it. We then cut over to the first of our menu makers, who sets about making the food, and this is when we come across our first primary theme of the show, which is that no one can actually cook. But Ben, you say, this is a show about cooking and menus. Surely they should be able to cook. Yeah, but no, they can't.
This has got a cover on it, isn't it? I can't work out.
I don't think she's going to appreciate that in there, is she?
Got a little bit of nail varnish in there.
How good do they look? Oh no! Why?
I didn't realise lemon sole was a fish.
Yeah, it's a fish.
Okay.
Well, it was a fish before I cooked it, but yeah, it's meant to be a fish.
Have you put extra lemon on it?
Put extra lemon on it, yeah.
And it might have bones.
Yeah.
Also, take a shot for every time someone says, this is actually the first time I'm making this.
I've never made pastry before.
You will die. You'll simply die. They then finish up, usually by making some kind of cheesecake that involves grinding up biscuits, and then they say something awkwardly to the camera along the lines of, now it's time to make myself look like a dish.
Oh, so that's the cooking done. Just need to get ready now.
And then they disappear into their bedroom, put on a slightly different shirt, wax up their hair, and wait for our protagonist to arrive.
Let's go, champ. Today's the day, baby. The food done, dessert done, starter done. You're looking mighty fine. The baby girl better not be late. Let's do this.
This is when the actual date begins, and this is when you, as a viewer, really start to realise that this show makes absolutely no sense, because ultimately, this is a dating show, right? This is about two people trying to make a connection, possibly fall in love, but the only thing they have in common is that one of them wrote down some food, and the other one read the food and said, yeah, that food looks okay. So statistically, there's very little chance that these two people will actually get along, and that is completely borne out by the show. This is a dating show where no one ever seems to like each other, because why would they? But they're always polite, so when it comes to expressing their first impressions to camera, they always say the exact same thing. They say they're nice, but not their usual type.
He's not my usual type, no.
Not necessarily what I'd say is my usual type.
In fact, I was going to make a supercut of people saying, they're not my usual type, but I do not have the time or sheer hard drive space to contain that many clips. By the way, if you're wondering what people's usual type is, for women it tends to be tall, dark and handsome, and for men it tends to be blonde, short and not too much makeup.
Quite petite, blonde, quite active maybe.
So, I mean, that's just for the straight ones. The queer ones tend to be a little bit more nuanced, but for the straights, it's straightforward. The two then have their meal and usually get extremely drunk while they have their questionable food. And this is where we noticed our next weirdly common recurring theme, which is that no one on dinner date owns a table. And I just truly don't understand this, because it's not like tables are like an extreme luxury. I mean, these are all people who have jobs and have homes, either rented or owned. They have other furniture. They can afford to have fancy meals, but none of them have tables. Tables are not that expensive. Like a little table, even just like a plastic garden table. So 9 times out of 10, the two of them end up perched on some kind of sofa or chair with the meal on their laps, or they pull up some kind of weird stool and put the food on that. Either way, it does not look comfortable. They continue on, having awkward banter and getting more and more drunk, until at the end, when there's usually some kind of party gimmick that the menu maker has been presumably forced to bring out by the producers. 9 times out of 10, this is just beer pong, but sometimes it's something absolutely delightfully demented, like this. Or this.
Do you want to see my party trick?
I really do. Whoa. That's the oddest thing I've ever seen.
Or this.
I see you over there looking cute. You know I speak the truth. Forget them other guys. Pick me for your date too.
Aha! Well done. Look at that, a rhyme.
Then it's time for the date to end, and the protagonist is walked to the door by the menu maker, and depending on how drunk they've got, they'll either awkwardly lean in for a kiss and be rejected, or they'll do a weird hug and say goodbye. The two of them are then quizzed about how they thought the date went, and they will always say something along the lines of, yeah, they were a great person, I got along with them, they had a nice personality, but I didn't quite feel a spark. It's always the spark. Every episode, it's they haven't got a spark.
I'm not sure if the spark was there.
Because why would there be a spark? You've picked them blind off a menu. It's the most utterly sparkless situation. Then, in probably the strangest piece of game show nonsense in the entire production, the menu maker is asked to review the protagonist out of 3 stars. However, this star rating never comes into play again in the show, and there's many episodes where the rating is never even told to the protagonist, so I don't know what this is for. Maybe it's to show the audience how the person feels about the protagonist, but they've just had an interview where they've said out loud how they feel about them.
I'm not sure if the spark was there.
So what is the point of the stars? But useless as they are, they do say a lot about the person. For example, if they give 3 stars, that shows they're a bit desperate. If they give them 1 star, it shows they didn't really like the person. Maybe it was a bad date. If they give them 2 stars, they clearly liked them and they're playing hard to get. Or if they give them 2.5 stars, like I would say about 95% of people do, it means they've seen Dinner Date before and they know that's the safest rating to go with, because it's not too desperate, but it's not too mean.
I'll give the 2.5 stars out of 3.
2.5 stars.
2.5 stars.
2.5 stars. And 2.5 stars.
2.5 stars out of 3.
But again, it doesn't matter, because the rating affects nothing. The protagonist then goes on 2 more dates with 2 more people who don't own tables, who aren't their usual type, and who they don't have a spark with, and then right at the end, the protagonist has to make a decision about which of the 3 they're going to choose to have a real-life date with. And we then have the drama of finding out which of the 3 is going to be chosen, because all 3 are made to get ready for a date, but of course only one is going to be actually selected. The other 2 do have a knock at their door, but are met with a microwave meal. Ooh, how sad, how shameful to believe in love. Most of them take it in good spirits when they're rejected, but I would say a worrying amount of people do not and are incredibly bitter and annoyed. Way too annoyed for someone who knows they're being filmed. Like, it's a 2-minute segment where they're asking you about this. Just be magnanimous. Don't be like, well, I hope she finds someone because I certainly didn't want her. Like, dude, this is national TV. Just pretend you're fine with it. You can be angry afterwards.
Don't like chili. I don't like being rejected, so this is going in the bin.
And finally, our protagonist makes their way to their person of choice, the best of the three, and they say, hey, do you want to go on a date with me? And usually they bring some kind of gift, like a big bunch of flowers or a bottle of wine, which is strange because they immediately get in a cab and go to a restaurant. So they just have to bring that gift awkwardly with them. Like, I saw one where a girl brought a big bottle of champagne to the girl she was going on a date with. But it's like, what do they do with that bottle? You can't just bring a bottle of champagne into a restaurant. Did they leave it outside? The two then have a real date in yet another restaurant that has been completely emptied for the production, which must be incredibly awkward. Like, imagine having a date with effectively a total stranger in front of a film crew in an entirely emptied restaurant. Agony. Throughout the date, the pair are questioned individually about how they think things are going, and they usually say, yeah, it's going pretty well, but they tend to stay pretty cagey because they don't want to come across too keen. But they do tend to say things like, yeah, I'd love to see them again. Yeah, it'd be fun to see them again.
I'm feeling really positive, and hopefully she is too.
And then we fade to black to find out their fate. First, we're updated about the other two menu makers, and it usually says something like, Chris is still single, or Chris is seeing someone new. And I don't know why they don't always just lie and say they're seeing someone new. Like, it's so sad to see it pop up and go, Chris is still single, with the implication being, and always will be.
Don't like chili. I don't like being rejected, so this is going in the bin.
And then, finally, we get the message about what happened with our main pair. And it always says something along the lines of, the two swap numbers and then never met again. Boom, cut to credits. Straight into credits. This is our final recurring theme of this show. No one ever ends up dating from dinner date. It should just be called Dinner. It's just a show about random people having dinner and not having a very good time. I think there's one instance of a couple getting married off dinner date, but weirdly that's also the only instance of anyone getting together from dinner date, so I feel like they used up all their juice with that one couple. And I know this is coming every episode. There's like 600 episodes and I've seen every single one, and every time I know in the back of my head they're not going to get together, but still, a small part of me in my heart goes, ooh, they got along quite well. They said out loud they like each other. They said in private they like each other. But no, never end up dating. No one dates from dinner date. Do any of these qualities make the show bad? No. Am I going to stop watching this show? Absolutely not. Do I think they should improve the show and make it make more sense? Definitely not. If anything, make it weirder. Halfway through a date, they should just throw a live gibbon into the room and just see what happens. I love you, dinner date. Please. Never change. I'm Benedict Townsend, this is my channel. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit like, it genuinely really helps me out with the crazy YouTube algorithms and stuff. And if you want to see more fun videos like this, hit subscribe as well. Because I'd really like to see you again, even though, you know, you're not really my usual type. And there wasn't much of a spark. I'm kidding, please come back.